Chapter 71 to 75. I fixed my cuffs, pulled on my collar to make sure it was nice and straight, and I ran a finger along my tie to make sure there were no creases. My hand sneaked back and tugged lightly on my ponytail to make sure it was still nice and snug, bound by that little piece of fabric that Scathack used all those days ago, and I couldn't help but smile slightly at the memory. I fiddled with the buttons on my vest. Jacket or no jacket? I usually go with no jacket. I turned around to see how it looked from the back. How about Juggernaut Drive, that way you can die and put me out of my misery. If you're not going to be helpful. You know what? Go butt-ass naked, I'm sure that will draw lots of attention. You're being really aggressive. I have to live through this every day. I've never had a host be so obsessed with what they're wearing, and let me be clear, I have had female hosts before. Mildly sexist. Oh, come off it, I'm technically genderless. Females can be sexist against their own gender, that means nothing. I pointed out. And besides, you've never had a host look as good as I do. I smirked. Oh, there's the patented devil pride I've heard about. Sorry, the dragon says what? The dragon says you're a little bitch. Yes, I, the Red Dragon Emperor, am a little bitch. I declared. I hate you. I snorted, holding back a laugh. Well, it could be worse, Drake. I set down a box I withdrew from my ring, opening it up to reveal several pairs of cufflinks. I could go around declaring myself a pay dragon. Little bitch it is then. No, what am I doing? I shut the small box. Way too gaudy for a casual get-together. I shook my head, putting them away. You need new shoes. I blinked, looking down out of instinct. You know what? I do need new shoes. I mean, it's not noticeable, but they were slightly scuffed in that little tussle I had the other day. Another reason to be annoyed with that idiot. I'm surprised. Why? Do you think I don't understand how to look good? Drake snorted. You know, I used to roll around in gold and jewels so they would get stuck between my scales and make me glitter and shine better. Huh, you learn something new every day. Why are you even trying so hard? Are you planning on claiming her as well? First, I would use almost any excuse to dress up. It's enjoyable, is that such a crime? And I want to look nice when I meet with my friend, I want to make a good impression. Second, we barely know each other. I rolled my eyes. I'm not trying to bang every girl I trade words with, regardless of how pretty was. Didn't stop you with Artoria. That. I stopped for a moment. Touché. I admit he had a point there, but it was a little different. I knew her before I knew her. I would be lying if I said my knowledge of her didn't skew my perceptions and perhaps give me a sort of idol in my mind. Regardless, I did not have any regrets with how things turned out. And now I couldn't help but think of her. Nope. No moping, I'm going out to have drinks with a new friend. I flipped my hat sitting nearby and set it on my head before adjusting it just right. Time to go. Izzy. I smiled brightly, walking into the bar. It was once again empty minus us three. The owner just gave me a look before going about his business again. Hello, Wilhelm. She nodded at me, a small smile on her face. I took a seat next to her, the man behind the bar already placing a drink in front of me. I couldn't help but chuckle as I took a sip, almost coughing it up. Damn, that's strong. I forced it down, and it was not enjoyable that way. Needs to be sipped to appreciate more. How have you been? I have been doing very well. She turned towards me, fingering her own glass. I am excited that my youngest has decided to respond to my inquiries. As I mentioned in our correspondence over the phone, he will be visiting me next month. She keeps herself well reserved, but the excitement in her tone was palpable. Oh, I'm curious, what's he like? Abrasive, rash, prone to using his fists when he should use his words. She listed off. But he can be really sweet too. Even when his father and I separated, he was willing to express his intent to visit me, much to his father's anger. Isn't it usually the youngest that acts out the most? I suppose you are right, he is definitely a mama's boy. She smiled. His elder siblings are much more reserved, even if they usually cause just as many messes. And how have you been? She inquired. Has your newfound fame been detrimental at all? Oof, I took another sip. Got attacked by a high schooler who looked like he was getting ready to play some D&D in his mom's basement. He also happened to actually know magic. She blinked at me, mulling over my statement. Are you hurt? She questioned. Oh no, kid was as green as my grass, I waved her off. Well, at least before the little shit tore up a part of my yard. He had a sacred gear as well, as did his friend who tried to kill me too. I feel as though you are leaving out several important details. She deadpanned. Do not try to gloss over the important bits. Fine, fine. I sighed. Wizard kid comes trying to recruit me, called himself the descendant of George Faust. I don't know if you know who the famous magician who had a contract with Mephistopheles. She stated, to my surprise. She rolled her eyes at my look. I do know what goes on outside of my country. Of course. I smiled lightly. Anyways, kid is named George Faust, don't know if he's actually named that or is trying to seem better than he really is. I shook my head. Tried to recruit me to his hero faction or some such nonsense. Basically, humans, heroes, descendants and whatnot who are trying to protect the human race from the supernatural. Did the idea of being a hero not catch your fancy? She propped her chin up with her hand. I mean. I sighed again. Who doesn't admire the idea of a hero, but reality is often much more disappointing. I fingered my glass for a moment. Besides, he tried to use my heritage as a reason to join. Something about suffering at the hands of the devils. I waved my hand flippantly. He seemed to jump straight to emotional manipulation to get me to join, pretty weird for a first meeting. I take it he did not appreciate your rejection. She smiled in slight amusement. Nope, tried to use his sacred gear, dimension lost to imprison me. I snorted, a small laugh escaping my lips. Went crying back home is what he did. Pardon. She interrupted me. Did you say you countered his dimension lost? One of those blasted things that is said to have the ability to kill gods. Aha. I see, you are stronger than I expected then. Long story short, his companion tried to impale me with his true Longinus. Izzy almost spit out her drink, slamming the cup back down before forcing the drink down her throat. The true Longinus. Ah, you've heard of it. Yes, I've heard of the divine spear that can kill gods with the ease that one can kill chickens. She deadpanned. Not only that, but is it not absolute poison to your kind? It is, but I didn't touch it. Huh, she knows more than I thought. You play a dangerous game. She shook her head. You should take your safety more seriously. Her words were rather gentle, and it seemed like she was upset that I acted in the way I did. I was not as flippant in how I acted in battle. I explained. I could feel the deadliness the spear threatened me with and I acted appropriately. I wasn't intentionally trying to court death or anything. Anyways, let's talk about something more interesting, like my hat. I quickly set my hat on the table, upside down. Your hat. She raised an eyebrow. Yes, you see, it has an interesting little function. I reached my hand deep in sand and voila. I pulled out Mr. Wiggles, setting him on the counter. She stared at me, I shot her a cocky smile right back. The bartender looked unamused by the prospect of having an animal on his bar. I slid a few gold coins his way and he just shrugged. It was another moment before Izzy finally broke out in giggles. That is the most ridiculous thing I have seen in quite some time. She calmed herself down. Whatever could possess you to do this? Her hand hesitantly reached over to touch the ball of fluff. Well, my mom took me to see a stage magician when I was younger. I smiled at the memory. And I wanted to learn how to do those tricks as a sort of hobby. I actually came back to Japan as a sort of vacation, thought it would be a nice way to unwind and just enjoy myself. What is its name? By the look in her eyes, I could tell she wanted to hold him, so I allowed him to hop over to her a bit. She looked surprised that he was willing to get so close to her. I guess I was used to her aura of death, that I sometimes forgot it was even there. Staying in the land of shadows kind of desensitized me to such things. He is Sir Wigglesbottom Fluffytail Octavius Benedict III, Crown Prince of the Emerald Kingdom. You just keep adding more onto it every time you say his name. Yup. Or just Sir Wiggles for short. She had a warm smile on her face as Sir Wiggles allowed her to embrace him. Hello, Your Highness. She cooed, gently rubbing his little head. I could tell through the link that he was enjoying himself even if her presence was intimidating to him. I think the fact that I was calm in her presence kind of trickled down to him. I also made him my familiar. She let out a cute little laugh as he scrunched his nose. It seems you were intelligent enough to bind such an immaculate creature to you. Was that her way of saying I was smart to get such a cute little thing as my familiar? I did find the way she switched between the way she talked sometimes. Like she was used to speaking in a more archaic fashion, yet sometimes talked like she was on the internet. What, you like to see the picture I took since I got him? Yes. She blinked, staring at me bashfully. I mean, yes, I would enjoy seeing them. Welcome to the supernatural online message boards. You are currently logged in, Nascent_Kaleidoscope. You are viewing threads you have replied to, and threads that have new replies, or private message conversations with new replies. Thread OP is displayed. Last 10 messages in private message history. Threads and private messages are ordered by user custom preference. Diamond suit topic, war in Kyoto. In, boards news events Kyoto. Just__muffin, original poster, verified muffin, veteran member. Posted on March 18, 2009. Holy shit. Okay, so most people know what's going on in Kyoto right now, and if not they can look out the fucking window and see the explosions. I was talking to my girlfriend on the phone, then suddenly a building down the street just collapsed and some idiot in a mask ran down the street throwing magic at anyone and anything he saw. I did the most obvious thing, threw up any and every barrier spell I knew, then hid under my bed. I'm not particularly good at magic, but I'm hoping for the best. Showing page 1 of 295. Ghost_with__gun. Replied on March 18, 2009. Fucking fuck, I can see fires all over the city. Where the fuck are the guards and what the fuck is going on? Slippery Tengu, verified guard. Replied on March 18, 2009. Okay, so I only have a few moments to post anything, and this was the first thread I saw. I asked my boss and he gave me permission. If you can see this, bunker down and get ready to weather the storm. We don't know what exactly is going on, but some terrorists are attacking. If you know magic, throw up any barriers you can. We're about to head downtown now to engage them. Billy Mays here, verified magician. Replied on March 18, 2009. Yo, so I was on vacation over here and suddenly everything starts exploding. The fuck, Japan? But seriously, this shit is bad. My hotel has some pretty decent magical protections, but it's been shaking almost non-stop for 30 minutes now. I started prepping my own spells in case I have to throw hands, but I'm honestly more of a researcher. Levi10_fan. Replied on March 18, 2009. My mom isn't answering her phone. Small Mountain. Replied on March 18, 2009. The humans joined the fight, I saw them fighting the masked people. Included pictures. Link. Baby Blue. Replied on March 18, 2009. At Small Mountain. What the fuck, are they on our side or not? I saw some humans start killing Yukai, then some other humans started killing the other humans. Does anybody have any idea what's going on? XX_Void_SamuRxX. Replied on March 18, 2009. Devils are here too. Link. Big_bad_wolf. Replied on March 18, 2009. At Baby Blue. Fuck the humans, let them kill themselves. Lasers 4 days, verified magician. Replied on March 18, 2009. At XX_Void_SamuRxX. Doesn't he look familiar? 2_tails. Replied on March 18, 2009. Fuck the devils, they always behind this shit. First the evil pieces they used to kidnap our people and now this fucking shit. Are we just going to keep letting them get away with this? Magic_propelled_grenade. Replied on March 18, 2009. At 2_tails. Calm the fuck down, there's only been one devil sighted so far and he's been helping, you dumbass. People like you just start calling for heads and make everything worse. At Lasers 4 days. Replied on March 18, 2009. He does look familiar, doesn't he kinda look like Lucifer? 2_tails, temp band. Replied on March 18, 2009. Deleted. She_who_ invites, if you have nothing to add to the discussion, keep it to yourself. End of page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 293, 294, 295. Showing page 19 of 295. Just muffin, original poster, verified muffin, veteran member. Replied on March 18, 2009. Okay, did anyone else see that fucking Hydra start tearing apart the city before it got sliced and diced? Digging deep. Replied on March 18, 2009. At just__muffin. Isn't that the same devil from before? Yeah, he looked really similar to Lucifer. I have a picture of them side by side. I think they're related. Frosty. Replied on March 18, 2009. I almost pissed myself. I got a front row seat to Lucifer Jr. cut down that fucking snake monster. I couldn't help but cry when it finally fell the ground. It was about to tear through my home. Mr. Fabulous. Replied on March 18, 2009. My heart goes out to my Yukai brethren, but did anyone see those spells he was throwing around? I didn't know devils knew any on Myoto, much less were accomplished on Myoji. That spell was impressive. Anyone got some insight on it? Shikigami 42, verified Shikigami. Replied on March 18, 2009. At Mr. Fabulous. I have some insight, my name should be enough proof. Yeah, that was a powerful spell meant for warding off disasters and evil. He used it to keep the snake's miasma and corruption contained while he fought the thing. If he didn't do that, a good chunk of the city over there wouldn't be habitable for several decades. It isn't a particularly noteworthy spell in of itself, but the ease he threw it out then went on to fight without even looking winded is turning some heads. 9_lives. Replied on March 18, 2009. Think he would give me kittens? Secretly secret. Replied on March 18, 2009. So, are we gonna talk about why the son of Lucifer is fighting in our town? Aren't we supposed to be mad at them? Plotting _the_ past. Replied on March 18, 2009. At secretly secret. Are we just assuming he's Lucifer's son now? I mean, I was looking up their family tree and his only son is still a brat and I don't see anyone else in the family tree that matches his description. While their hair color is pretty much a Gremory family specialty, I don't want to assume anything, but if it quacks like a duck and looks very similar to Lucifer. End of page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 293, 294, 295. Showing page 102 of 295. XX Void _Samurai XX. Replied on March 18, 2009. At Supershot 221. Look, all I'm saying is, he's probably a time traveler. Supershot 221. Replied on March 18, 2009. At XX Void _Samurai XX. Void, you're an idiot. There's no way he's the time-traveling younger Lucifer. The most likely explanation is that the man has a bastard. He's a devil. The fact that he was supposedly married to only one woman is already pretty sus. She_who_ invites, moderator, verified, not Izanami. Replied on March 18, 2009. At XX Void _Samurai XX. You also seem to think I'm Izanami, regardless of what you're told. Enough is enough, Void. I personally know him, he's not a time-traveling Lucifer. If you keep posting that, I'll have to give you a temp ban. I_like_swords. Replied on March 18, 2009. So if you couldn't tell by my name, anyways, anyone recognize those swords he had flying around him? That one he used to cut the heads off the Hydra, which was fucking awesome, did it do something to make them not grow back? I didn't see him cast any magic to stop the regrowth. Hooded_1. Replied on March 18, 2009. Oh ho, those rune spells he used were interesting. He seems to know our magic system, why didn't he use more of it? Maybe I should stick around in Japan a little while longer. At I_like_swords. Some of them may be newly created. If you look at that red sword flying around, you can see runes carved all over it. An interesting idea, I can think of several uses for such thing. At she_who_ invites. How about letting me meet him? He seems pretty interesting. She_who_ invites, moderator, verified, not Izanami. Replied on March 18, 2009. Go back home, old man. Hooded_1, temp banned. Replied on March 18, 2009. Deleted. She_who_ invites, no one asked you, enjoy your 2-week ban. Just_muffin, original poster, verified muffin, veteran member. Replied on March 18, 2009. Okay, we're getting a little off topic, but I guess it still has to do with what the fuck is going on in Kyoto. I know some people who know some people, so here's what we got. So you all heard about the cult of Tamamonome? Yeah, them crazies doing their usual stuff, except they grabbed some help from a couple human clans. And no, that isn't a reason to start bashing the humans, the other side their own to help us out, which is why we saw them clashing. So, big thanks to Lucifer Jr., is that what we're officially calling him now? Anyways, Lucifer Jr. helped out more than he realizes. That snake thing was supposed to be a big distraction or something, draw away the guards' attention so the crazies could do this large-scale ritual at the other end of the city. Didn't work out well for them, so kudos to our illustrious leader for, quite literally, stomping on the bad guys. Also, big thanks to Okita Tsuji, Knight of Lucifer. He was around and helped out quite a bit. No word on the relationship between the two, but I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. Bag _on_my_ head. Replied on March 18, 2009. Lady Isaka, step on me too. Not a koala. Replied on March 18, 2009. And here come the simps, I swear, these guys ruin every thread that Lady Isaka appears in. Also, step on me too. Never said I wasn't one of them. Enthusiastic Melon. Replied on March 18, 2009. Okay, so I was doing some calculations, and my numbers are basically telling me Lucifer Jr., and I think this name is stupid, is a wizard. Now, I know what you're thinking, obviously. Except, no. I mean the shit he was doing when moving, how space around him seemed to shatter as he moved. Yeah, my math is basically telling me purple when I try to calculate how he's doing that so easily. Seriously, all my formulas come alive and become sentient just so they can kill themselves. What the fuck? I had materials thrown about all around my house, floorboards ripped up, holes in the walls as cables and support beams jutted out at all angles. Notes were tapped to the wall, and scattered all around the floor. All kinds of scribbles, calculations and otherwise a nonsense if you had no idea what it meant. At the center was a strange scaffolding, almost like a holster for a familiar sword. Mirage was propped up, several spell circles overlaid underneath, and runes carved all along the wooden and steel frame that held it aloft. But it wasn't just mundane materials, intertwined with all the many pieces were bones, dragon bones. The ones pillages from that undead dragon back in Skyrim. There were also a few books stacked to the side, bookmarked or haphazardly thrown open to certain pages and marked. 3 days. I scowled. 3 days, and I'm still not any closer to cracking this. I huffed in annoyance, tossing a book to the side. I don't understand, I'm doing everything the directions say, yet I can't seem to do it correctly. Have you tried not sucking? Wonderful advice. I drawled. I can literally overturn the world's laws, yet I can't do something so simple. Why don't you take a break? Do something easier, like play with your magic. I sighed, looking at Sir Wiggles sleeping soundly on a little bed I bought him. I had the urge to go pet him, but I would respect his nap. Yeah, I'll just take a break and do something easier, like mess with both the time and world axis to overlay multiple spatial folds across world lines. I set down the deck of cards I was fiddling with and kicked away the book on card magic I had picked up from a store the other day. Can do real magic, can't even fucking do a sleight of hand thing with cards, I threw my hands up in exasperation. How's the project going? Oh this? I flicked my sword, still bound into the mechanism of the spell formulation. Solved this the other day. You going to test it? Yeah, I need another location. My first thought was New York. It was a good distance away and a good centralized spot for supernatural shenanigans, but isn't that angel territory? I crossed my arms with a frown. I'm pretty sure angels claim dominion over the entire earth. Don't be a smartass. Fine, fine. I waved him off. Yeah, the angels basically claim America, and Canada. Except for the areas where the Native Americans took up residence. Really, I don't think there are any groups in the world who would pick a fight with the last vestiges of the Native American supernatural community, and that's entirely out of pity. What happened in the early days of colonization, let's just say the mundane side was not nearly as bad as the supernatural one. I think it was the first time the world saw gods be tortured to death by mortals. Not even assholish deities, just your average divine beings, being pulled apart at the metaphysical seams and returned to the void of creation. Yeah, even the angels, back when they were much more zealous, actually felt bad for the Native American pagans, to the point where they put out decrees to never harm them unless absolutely necessary. That whole thing led to the South American pantheons basically waging war against the invaders. What a shit show that was. My sword began to power up, so to speak, the strange mechanisms reacted, even if it looked utterly absurd in creation. It's not my fault that I'm trying to deal with 5 dimensions and keeping it anchored into this lower dimension. I wanted to sit down, but my sofa was currently littered with materials and other doodads. I really need to get more furniture, I muttered, withdrawing a chair from my ring. The room lit up, the cables snapped to attentions. I couldn't help but smile as I watched the dragon bones hold firm. Even if they were decayed by necromantic magics, they were still extremely sturdy, and more durable than nearly any material I could get my hands on in the immediate time frame. Well, I'll let the initial calculations start up. I eyed it one last time. While I won't be using my sword as the true focus, it can still be used temporarily to get everything started. The calculations would be annoying if I had to do them by hand. Much worse than simply popping over from one world to the next, and that took me days to finish. But, I couldn't help but smile at as everything came together. My project, more so just a small bit of passion, was working. No deadlines, no incessant need, merely the desire to create this. Now I want to celebrate. Should I order in? I tilted my head back, staring at the ceiling. I'm in the mood for some pizza. That sounds good actually. How about some pineapple? I will divorce you if you put pineapple on my pizza. I snorted, a small smile on my face. I'm kidding, relax. Frankly, I don't like pineapple on my pizza, nor do I care about people who do, I just like the joke. And what do you mean your pizza? It's all going into my belly. Well, I get to taste it at least. Wait, what? Drake made an amused noise. You didn't know? If I knew, I wouldn't be confused. I deadpanned. This is rare. I know something you don't. I don't think I'll explain. Alright, where did I put that white spray paint? Someone pissed in your Cheerios. How do you even know those words? Have you forgotten that I watched through your memories? Maybe. Fuck off. Well, with a little bit of effort, I can share some of your senses, predominantly, taste. Oh, that is significantly less bad than I was assuming you were going to say. That raised a few interesting questions. What's your favorite food? Oh, I haven't really thought about that. Drake seemed genuinely interested. Remember your date with Artoria, the fair in America? Oh. I exclaimed. The turkey wrapped in bacon. Oh, that was good, but no, almost though. I felt like I saw him shake his head. It was that really thick bacon, fried in that little dash of brown sugar, that was amazing. That was good. I briefly recalled that particular memory. Americans sure know how to make tasty food. And now I'm craving that again, damn it Drake. What a strange conversation his has become. I felt my phone buzz, I took it out to read a new message. Hello, Wilhelm, how are you doing? Izzy. I smiled lightly as I began to text back. I'm good, what's up? Wilhelm. I have a hypothetical question. Izzy. And I have a hypothetical answer, what's wrong? Wilhelm. Say that a child was intended to be sacrificed to bring back a spirit from Yomi, and I noticed what was going on, and perhaps I may have distorted the ritual ever so slightly, but I was late by a single breath, Izzy. I paused, reading what she wrote several times. I would say you are a good person for stopping that. Wilhelm. I appreciate your words, but I wasn't finished. Hypothetically, what if said child fell into Yomi, unconscious, while the ritual imploded on itself? Izzy. I would say, this is a bad situation, and would require immediate attention. Wilhelm. Just as I sent the message, there was a knock on my door. I blinked for a moment before going to answer. Ah, hello, a very familiar face answered. Izzy, how bad is the situation? I eyed her uneasiness. How did she even know where I lived? Questions for later. Oh, it is very bad. She said almost comically straight. The child is the only daughter of Yasaka. I facepalmed rather hard. As in the Yukai leader, Nine-Tailed Fox, Miko for Amaterasu? Indeed. She replied. And you came to me? I questioned her thoughts. Why not go to Yasaka? I'm sure she would be, not thrilled, but also not angry at you for bringing her such information. I am. She looked down. Not exactly welcomed in her court, and I do not believe I would retain any trust if I told her what happened. And, I do not have anyone else. Oh, now I feel bad. I smiled gently. Alright, we just have to go rescue a little kitsune from Yomi, right? No big deal. I tried to cheer her up. So, do you know where the ritual site is? I can probably force back open a portal, piggybacking off the initially link. I tapped my finger against my chin. I don't really want to get involved in nonsense like this again, but my weak spots were hit quite hard. I really do have a soft spot for children, and my friend was asking me for help, how could I say no? No need, I can create a portal anywhere. She said with confidence. Oh, that's convenient. Huh, I wonder how. I'm curious to see how it works. I just hope Izanami is not as the myths describe her. I did have cards to play against her if it came to blows. The deities here were much weaker than those from my home, so I had some amount of confidence. She waved her hand, the ground literally deformed, jutted out and burst forth as a stone scaffold raised from the ground and a portal formed in between the stone pillars. Reminds me of the Land of Shadows. I couldn't help but mutter. Land of Shadows? Izzy's head jerked towards me. Is that not the land of the dead over in the United Kingdom? One of them. I smiled. Anyways, how do you wish to do this? Have you experienced going into Yomi? I still had no idea what she was, to be able to go into Yomi so easily. She is no doubt powerful. Perhaps some kind of spiritual beings. I will lead the way. I just shrugged, holding my hand out as Mirage flew into it. Let's go, Sir Wiggles. I said quietly. He bolted up and jumped into my hat, which I was holding upside down for him. I briefly saw the desire in Izzy's eyes to pet him again, but she held back. Follow my steps closely. She ushered me forward as we stepped through. It was a familiar setting, yet so different. The air was thick with death and decay, yet the coldness wasn't as pronounced. It was darker, like shadows making their own shadows, as ridiculous as that sounds. Izzy navigated it expertly, knowing where to walk, where to avoid as to not accidentally get swept up in the void between spaces. We finally came to what looked like a house, which was surprisingly, because I knew of only one being who would have a house here. Does you know who lived there? Yes. Izzy replied. Is it wise to go there? Nothing happens here without her knowledge, don't worry, she already knows we are here and is welcoming. She stepped up, opening the door. I'm curious how you would KN. Welcome to my home. She cut me off. Oh. Drake just started laughing at me. There was a rather awkward silence that filled the room. I was sitting on her sofa and she sat in a chair nearby. To make it even worse, there was an unconscious little girl next to me. The missing little kitsune. Her 9 tails moved ever so slightly with her breathing. I feel like an idiot not realizing who Izzy was before. I mean, it was staring at me right in the face. Looking up at Izzy, Izanami, she looked away the moment our eyes met. So, Izanami. I finally spoke, the silence was starting to grate on me. Her head snapped towards me, wanting to say something but she held herself back. I apologize for hiding my identity. She said quietly. Okay. She paused, looking at me in surprise. You aren't angry or... Did you think I would be? I questioned here. I'm not going to get angry for you hiding your true name. I rolled my eyes. Izzy, I intentionally used her fake name. Are you not the same person I was spending time with? What exactly changed between then and now? Is it really that simple to you? She looked at me in shock. I am Izanami no Makoto, goddess of death, she who beckons. I have committed heinous sins in my life, the world curses my very existence. Literally the son of Satan over here. I deadpanned. It is not the same and you know it. She pursed her lips, crossing her arms in annoyance. I am condemned by the very land I helped create. Yeah, that's not fair. I sighed, thinking about what she's been through. She wasn't lying about her sins, if the stories are anything to go by. But, at this moment, I don't see that hateful goddess portrayed in myths and legends, all I see is a lonely woman who misses her family. Should I call you Mother Izanami? I smiled towards her. She was Japan's mother goddess. Why you? She actually looked bashful at the words. Don't tease me. She added on quietly. I couldn't help but chuckle at her reaction, definitely going to call her that in the future. I'm not upset, Izzy. I said gently. I am surprised, and more annoyed at myself for not realizing. But I don't have the faintest negative perception of you right now. It could be a ruse, a plan to trick you into this place, for you to never leave. Aren't you supposed to trick me into consuming something of this place, so I would be forever bound? I raised an eyebrow. That myth regarding Persephone and Hades did have some kernels of truth to it. My lips curled up as I saw her huff. Now that I think about it, aren't you supposed to be stuck here? She scoffed. I am a goddess, do you think a rock can keep me sealed for that long? Makes sense. I wonder if any other deities know she gets up and walks around the surface whenever she wants. I just shrugged. Well, regardless, you are my friend and I don't care who you are, . And what a funny thought that is right now. I somehow became friends with Izanami. Unless you don't want to be anymore. She actually tensed up at my words, clearly unsettled by my implication. I enjoy our time spent together. She squeezed out. Well, then nothing else needs to be said. I clapped my hands. So, what's the issue with little fox over here? I don't think she knew how to respond to my dismissal of her status, but she seemed willing to shift the conversation. You are more than familiar with those miscreants that caused chaos in the city not that long ago? Tamamonome cult. Yes. She rolled her eyes. Those idiots did not stop their initial attempts, apparently they had a few backup plans in place in case of failure. How they managed to actually devise a strategy of that level I can't fathom, because they certainly do not seem to possess the modicum of intelligence needed for that small amount of forward thinking. Ouch, yeah, they didn't seem too bright. Perhaps they managed to find a child to poke holes in their elaborate schemes? I actually don't know more than the bare basics. I scratched the back of my head. Honestly, I've been keeping myself out of that whole mess. Izanami looked embarrassed. I guess she must have thought she was dragging me into this against my wills, but I was more than willing to help her too. They were trying to use a ritual to resurrect Tamamonome using another nine-tailed fox. Izanami gestured towards the sleeping little kitsune. Once the connected to Yomi was made, I saw what was happening, and I took exception. Tamamonome is actually an aspect of Amaterasu, practically her daughter. I dare not ask what the relationship is like there, because she seems really distant with the concept. Curious. I tapped my chin, thinking about the course of actions. If I had to guess, they were trying to create a symbolic link due to heritage, then drag out Tamamonome's soul, use the kid's body as a catalyst to revitalize the dead spirit's flesh with her own essence. That is, frighteningly close to what was happening. She seemed mildly surprised by my insight. There is only one issue that remained though. She feels of death, but isn't actually dead. I said, staring at the little girl. Yes. Izanami said quietly. She was invaded by the power of Yomi, her soul, it was touched by this realm. I'm doing what I can to keep any more from seeping into her, but it is already acting like poison. And you can't simply remove or cleanse it? I asked. She was also a goddess of creation. I can, if I didn't care about her continued existence. Izanami replied. I am Yomi, anything I try to do, inside, of her will leave more traces of me and the same issues will persist. Ah, like trying to put out a fire with more fire. You understand. She nodded. That is why I required, outside help. Outside help am I? And here I thought we were friends. That's not what I meant. She pouted, and it was cute I couldn't help but tease her. I sighed, thinking about the headache this would be. I understand why you couldn't simply drop her off at her mother's now. I said idly. Yeah, quite a few comments she made started to make more sense. Oh gods, I gave her advice on how to deal with her godly children. Her youngest is Susanoo. Izanami looked away, a sad smile on her face. I have not seen my daughter for many years, I don't want our reunion to be her assuming I schemed against her Miko. The fact that Amaterasu would probably not listen to reason and assume the worst of Izzy was left unsaid. It would most definitely cause more issues than it solves. Well, you're in luck, I am perhaps one of the most knowledgeable magicians in the world. Aren't you barely an adult? Irrelevant. I waved her off. I think it is very relevant. I ignored her and turned towards the little kitsune. The immediate solutions was perhaps to use a healing spell. My hand ignited with that familiar white light as I raised it over the little girl. Her pale face turned slightly healthier, but I could tell she wasn't actually getting better. No, the infection still remained. A normal healing spell won't do anything. I didn't really expect it to, but I wasn't to see the extent of damage. Perhaps a sealing. Gathering it all up, seal it in a corner of her body for later purification. Any sealing spell would be eroded within hours. Izanami added. Yeah, this stuff is very corrosive. It isn't merely deathly energy mixed in, it's like a combination of death and necrotic power. I murmured, stroking my chin. There is a difference between the two. Death is a natural state of being, the end result for everything. Necrotic energies are unnatural, they twist life energies and propagate through corruption. While both are antithetical to continue living, combing them makes matters several-fold worse. If you continue to keep her steady, how long do you think before she crosses the point of no return? Several hours at the most. She answered without a second thought. And there wasn't much we could do to slow that down. Even sealing it away for a few hours may have an adverse effect when the energies break free. Yeah, it would buy some time, but the energies might rampage when they finally break out, causing more damage before settling down, essentially accelerating the process. I suddenly had a thought. I may have a solution, but I require something from you. She tilted her head. What do you need? Permission to bring someone in here and help me. I'm close to someone who can most likely heal her fully. That's it? She questioned. And would they be comfortable coming here? Actually, I'm sure she would love to meet you. I want her to meet all my friends actually. I couldn't help but smiled at her. I see. She looked rather unsure of herself, but she relented. I will not block you from bringing someone to aid me. I held back the urge to give her a hug. I don't know why it made me feel bad seeing her like that, but we weren't really close enough for something that intimate. But still, I wanted to cheer her up. Would you like to hold Sir Wiggles while I'm gone? She looked at me, holding back an eager expression. Yes. I chuckled, flipping my hat off and allowing my familiar hop on out. I mentally sent him my feelings, telling him to watch over Izzy while I go run an errand. He happily hopped into her lap, allowing her to dote on him. Spoiled little rabbit. Well, I'm glad he doesn't feel intimidated by her anymore. Even this realm seemed not to bother him as long as he was nearby one of us. I can open up Yomi to almost anywhere in Japan. Where do you need to go? No worries, I got this. I waved her off, bringing out Mirage. What are you? I slashed my sword, creating a portal back home. I gave one last look over at Izzy, her eyes widened in disbelief. Yeah, if even Meridia was surprised that I could do this, I can only imagine Izzy will be too. I gave her a wink, jumping through. Let's just hope Artoria still has Avalon on her. My home world appeared before my eyes, the familiar magical energy in the air told me exactly where I was. There was something one learned with traveling to other worlds, each one had its own taste, so to speak. A flavor that was hard to describe unless you actually experienced it for yourself. I shook my head, that small bit of lightheadedness that appeared for the briefest moments when you jump from different levels of magical energy. The familiar walls around me came more into focus and I stepped out of my room at Zelrich's workshop. I did hear someone, exactly the person I was looking for. I saw her standing on her tiptoes trying to reach something in a high cabinet. Need a hand? I asked, seeing her head snap towards me, her body reeling back like she was doing something she wasn't supposed. Wilhelm. Artoria squeaked out. I was, just. She cleared her throat. I thought you would be gone for a few more days. Zelrich said you were dealing with something in another world. Yeah, something came up and I need help. I sighed, walking close to her. I saw her look rather shy as I inspected what she was trying to grab. Our eyes met and she looked away with a small blush on her cheeks. I couldn't help but chuckle, reaching up and grabbing the box of cookies down for her. I think I heard a small, thank you, out from under her breath. Gods, she's so cute. She held the box to her chest, I could tell she wanted to get into them right away, but she held back. What did you need help with? Actually. I scratched the back of my head. I need your help specifically. I would be more than happy to lend you assistance. She smiled at me, a genuine way I could tell she meant it. Would it be prying if I asked if you currently possessed Avalon? She blinked at me for a moment. You wish to know if I currently possess my sheath? She reiterated. Am I to assume that someone requires healing? Yeah, a little girl. Avalon is quite the powerful noble phantasm. It provided Artoria with a form of immortality as long as she possessed it, her brain being her only weakness. Rumors were that it could even regrow a heart if it got destroyed, but I don't quite know about that. I see. She nodded. I do indeed have my sheath on me, and it is my duty as a knight to aid those in need. Thank you. I let out a long breath. Honestly, I didn't know what I would do if this didn't work out. She smiled at me. I will never turn down the opportunity to save innocent lives. And, I admit I find this part of you trying to help others to be endearing. She added on quietly, turn her eyes away for a moment. Though I suspect there is more to this if you need the help of my noble phantasm. I winced slightly. What do you know of Yomi? The realm of the dead in Japan? She tilted her head, almost speaking to herself. The realm of Izanami no Mikoto, goddess of death. She practically recited the words out of her memories. So, said goddess, is my friend. She's the one asking me for help. I decided to just be blunt about it. Artoria just had her eyes widen, staring at me, unable to find the correct words for several moments. I do not know how to respond to that. I could only laugh awkwardly at her statement. Yeah, it kinda just happened. Honestly, I didn't even know she was Izanami when we first met. Kinda revealed herself when this little girl basically got dropped into her lap and the energies of Yomi are invading her body and soul. I see. She furrowed her brow. This is a strange request. Well, I can pay you in any way you want for your service, or if you want something else I'm sure. Will. She interrupted me. I merely said it was strange, not that I would not do it. She said gently, placing a hand on my arm. I trust you, I do not think you would lead me into a precarious situation, without at least informing me ahead of time. Oh, and suddenly I felt much more at ease and my heart was beating slightly faster. That is true. For both informing her and leading her into precarious situations, she can handle herself, she doesn't need for me to treat her like a damsel in distress, unless she wants to be. And, as your girlfriend, I wish to meet someone you call a friend. She added, her cheeks a fresh tint of pink. Huh, I guess we did become boyfriend and girlfriend. I mean, it's obvious, it's that we never put a name on it until now. Did I ever tell you how amazing you are? She made a small noise in embarrassment. Time is of the essence here, is it okay to leave immediately or do you need some time to prepare? Rin and the wizard marshal are currently working on something. She looked uncertain. I knew she took her duties to being Rin's servant very seriously. I can time it so regardless you'll be back within the next couple hours. I pointed out. Oh, then I believe we should make haste. I held out my hand. Well then, shall we? She took it without any hesitation, that bright smile on her face as I opened a new portal and led her through. Artoria held my hand much tighter as we stepped through the portal. I think regardless of everything, she was a little bit nervous. I have shared my birth world with her in the past. She knew that divine beings still persisted here, that magic and such was known by a much wider community, but to experience it was a whole different matter. Wilhelm. Izzy's voice called out, she stood up from her seat to greet us. And this is? She asked, looking at Artoria. Greetings, Lady Izanami. Artoria with the expertise she developed in life immediately slipped into her regal persona. Almost as if judging the woman in front of her. I am Artoria Pendragon, Will's girlfriend. I was mildly surprised she provided her true name, but I guess it didn't really matter across worlds. A member of the Pendragon clan? I only heard the vaguest things about them in the Western world. She muttered. Yes, you do look like the heir I've seen a picture of. Artoria, to her credit, kept her expression extremely neutral. Merely shooting me a look and I could only convey that I would explain later with my eyes. Izanami's eyes narrowed, practically drilling into Artoria, like she saw something that interested her. You are not a living being, or rather, you are but are not, how strange. A living spirit, is that not a paradox? Artoria didn't react. It is as you say. She merely confirmed Izanami's views without adding anything. There was a strange atmosphere between them. I didn't quite know how to explain it, like both of them were sizing each other up. Weird. Ladies? I interjected, their heads snapped to me. The girl? Yes, of course. Izanami turned away, looking towards the little kitsune on the couch. I have managed to keep the worst of it away, but still, some enters her body and lingers. Yeah, I knew exactly what she was talking about. This place was almost like an infection, it kept trying to grab me. I could keep it off with ease, but the same couldn't be said about this little unconscious girl. I see, and this is the one you wish me to heal. Artoria walked forward, placing her hand gently on the yokai's forehead. She is not human, she said quietly, not any kind of accusation, but more of a mild surprise. Even with the obvious non-human features, I think it was more just the incredulity of it. For her, phantasmal species were something extremely rare, and to see one so blatantly laying about must have been quite the cultural shock. Will that be an issue? Honestly, the thought never crossed my mind. It shouldn't be. Artoria shook her head. How exactly do you plan on healing her? Izanami crossed her arms, staring at Artoria. Artoria's lips twitched as she kept herself even. She pushed against her own chest, a bright light suddenly filled the room, bursting out in every direction. The vicious energies of this realm practically fled away from it. With this, she replied, and I felt like I could make out the vaguest amount of smugness in her voice. What is? Izanami held her breath, drinking in the holy light. It is beautiful. Artoria placed it on the little kitsen's chest, the holy energies enveloping her, attacking and consuming all deathly and necrotic power that had seeped into her body and soul. Avalon, the hallowed scabbard of Excalibur. Artoria said, peeking over at Izanami, like she was gauging her reaction. I was surprised she was being so forthcoming. Excalibur's scabbard? Izanami repeated. Why is the scabbard so much stronger than that broken sword? She said in a confused voice. Broken? Artoria's voice raised slightly, an audible reaction on her face. Oof, I knew I was forgetting something. You sound as if that is something new to you. Izanami's eyes narrowed. How could you possibly not know that? Are you really one of the Pendragon clan? Izanami's eyes began to glow. Now that I take a closer look, you are much older than you appear, and you are not a normal spirit. You are nothing like I have ever seen before, almost reminiscent of those Einherjar that the Norse keep, but even that pales in comparison. What are you? She slowly raised her hand. Artoria frowned, I could feel her ready to fight at a moment's notice. Izzy, I said gently, grabbing her attention. She looked at her hands, they were glowing slightly and she quickly dismissed whatever power she was drawing upon. I am sorry. She took a step back, looking rather skittish. I'm not used to speaking with others and I believe I overreacted. I shall wait in another room while you finish up. She turned to away, but another voice rang out. I just sighed. Wait, Artoria called out, glancing at me. Izanami halted her steps, turning back. How about we start over? Artoria also pulled back her battle sense, her combat focus, and became almost docile again. I am Artoria Pendragon, it is a pleasure to meet Will's friend. Izanami hesitated, clearly unsure. I am, Izanami. It is nice to meet you, Miss Pendragon. There were no more power spikes, no divine authority being called upon and no noble phantasms being swung around, so things were going okay. I was glad that Artoria and Izanami were getting along now. Frankly, I don't really know what happened earlier. They were sort of antagonistic when they first met, now though, they were happily chatting. I saw them out of the corner of my eye, in the kitchen. And every so often, they would look my way and giggle to themselves. I felt a disturbance in the force. I could only imagine what would happen with my girls meet each other. Well, at least Sir Wiggles was keeping them midly distracted. Good job, Sir Wiggles. I even reinforced my ears to eavesdrop, make sure nothing was wrong. Yes, he is a very good boy. Izanami held Sir Wiggled in her arms as Artoria cooed over the small animal. He is a good companion. Izanami nodded. So smart, yes you are. She gentle rubbed his head. I couldn't help but smile, even under the awkward spot I was in. Well, Artoria put the sheath inside of the little kitsune girl, to further purge her body of all that corruption. She got noticeably better in the time frame, her face now flushed with color instead of a pale deathly state. Only, she seemed to latch onto me. I don't know why, but when I went to check on her, she quite literally grabbed onto me and wouldn't let go. To be honest, I couldn't even bring forth the effort to pull myself away because... Daddy. She said quietly, pushing her head into my stomach, headbutting me every so often, like she was trying to grab my attention. That. Izanami and Artoria just looked at me in amusement, content to not even help me. I was on my own here, and I had no idea how to handle this. She wasn't even conscious. She sounded so scared, tightly grabbing onto me. There was a large part of me that felt something deep down. Sympathy? I don't know, but I couldn't stop myself from reacting. Shoo. I quietly whispered, running my hand through her hair. Daddy is here, you don't have to be scared anymore. No idea what I said thing, it was like my protective instincts were on overdrive. I hummed a song my mother used to sing to me when I was a bit younger than her, trying to calm her down. I have no idea what she actually went through, she must have been absolutely frightened, to suffer such a thing, to be made a living sacrifice. An instinctual response, I have no idea. Now that I think about it, I only heard about a mother, no father, perhaps it was something she held back in her heart. Regardless, even if she is a nine-tailed fox, she is but a child, this event most likely traumatized her severely. If I could offer this small amount of comfort, then so be it. She just curled up into me more, just as a fox would. Practically a small ball of fluff in humanoid form. This was something I didn't realize I wanted so much. A family? Children, something just like this. I've played with the idea of Meridia running around with our children, perhaps the thought was premature at this point, but I couldn't help but feel warm from the picture. Scathack too, would she ever want children? Scathack being a mother, I don't know why I found the idea equal parts humorous and heartwarming. And Artoria, I couldn't help but glance up to her, she didn't notice me but I looked away with a small amount of embarrassment. That was certainly much too early to think about. I don't know, my own feelings were all over the place. But for now, I just wanted to make sure this child wasn't scared any longer. You are surprisingly good at that. Izanami commented. Do foxes purr? Because I could vaguely feel something vibrate from her body, like a content noise. Am I? I really have no idea what I'm doing. Most parents don't. Since when am I a parent? I raised an eyebrow. Since she started called you, Daddy, dot. Izanami curled her lips finding amusement in my suffering. Once the girl was out of danger, the mood had relaxed substantially. Is it weird how I want to destroy anything that makes this little girl sad now? Have I randomly latched onto her so easily? What an odd sensation. At the rate you are going, children may be inevitable in your future. Artoria gave a small smile, taking a quick glance towards Izanami. Was there some kind of inside joke between the two of them that I was unaware of? Oh yes, Artoria here has been telling me about your other paramours. Izanami smirked. So young and you already have a harem? Ah, that's what they've been talking about when I wasn't paying attention. Well, I'm glad Artoria is on good terms with Izanami, even if it is at my own expense. I'm sure Izanami had been filling in some of the gaps in knowledge that Artoria has regarding devils. Joy. I don't think it's technically a harem if I haven't slept with anyone before. I pointed out. Wait, really? Izanami looked at me in surprise. Is that really so hard to believe? I rolled my eyes. Yes. Artoria looked at me with a small grin on her face, finding this whole thing funny. A devil, and a young devil at that. Izanami looked skeptical. Racist. Oh, shush you. Izzy smiled. How is the child? I think all the nasty stuff is gone. I smiled lightly, running my hand through her hair again. You can probably take back your sheath now, Artoria. With a nod, the knight walked over, gently placing a hand on her and pulling out the conceptual armament. The little kitsune shuddered slightly, and I felt her grab just a tad tighter. Amazing. Izzy commented. I can't even sense the smallest inkling of Yomi's power inside of her any longer. What a powerful sheath you possess. Of course. Artoria seemed happy to receive the praise, and it wasn't veiled with prodding this time. It is the embodiment of humanity's desire for utopia. I could tell that Izanami was holding herself back, perhaps if this was her many centuries ago, she would have simply forced out any answers she desired, but at this moment, she was not pushing it. I would advise you not to broadcast your possession of such a thing. Izanami looked a small bit concerned. The church would probably stop at nothing to acquire it. I thought out loud. Not just that institution. Izanami shook her head. There are many beings, even divine, who would wish to have that thing. Artoria smiled brightly. Thank you for your concern, I have confidence to keep it away from those who wish malicious intent. She looked over at the goddess. It only works with my magical energy, stealing it would be pointless. Izanami paused. Regardless, if you ever find yourself in trouble, contact me, I should be able to lend a hand. Thank you, your kindness is appreciated. Artoria replied, genuine in her words. We should probably get going. I don't think it's fair to make this girl's mother wait any longer. I didn't really want to stop their interaction, but I really wanted to get her back home. As the words left my mouth, Sir Wiggles jumped down where he was sitting and I held my hat out with one hand for him to jump inside. He seemed to like it. Perhaps I'll connect it to the yard back home so it acts as more of a portal or something. Yes, of course. Izanami said. I would not like to keep a child away from her mother longer than necessary. I look forward to the next time we can speak. Artoria stated. Next time. Izanami said quietly to herself. I, too, look forward to that. I finally hefted up the little kitsune, her head happily over my shoulder, and I carried her in my arms. I'll get you home first. I told Artoria. Thank you for everything. Izanami said. It was my pleasure to aid you, Izanami. Artoria smiled back towards the goddess of death who looked genuinely happy. I'm sorry I couldn't stick around longer. I also said my piece. No, the circumstances are understandable. I shall contact you at a later date. We walked out the door. I thought it would be rude to leave from the middle of her home. I'm also sorry for bringing you here then suddenly shutting you back home. I looked down to Artoria. I understand the situation, and I still enjoyed my time here. Artoria shook her head, staring out into the distance. I did enjoy spending time with Izanami. She looked rather contemplative. I also apologize for how I acted. I started thinking of her exactly like my sister and certain things suddenly swelled to the surface. Morgan Le Fay, yeah, I could see it. The King of Knights shook her head. I am happy that we left on good terms, and I would not be remiss to return. I quite enjoyed her company. Yeah, it's almost easy to forget that Izanami is a goddess. She was so happy to sit around and chat with us. I felt almost bad to bring back Sir Wiggles, but I promised I would meet up with her again. Overall, I'm happy. My girlfriend was getting along with my new friend, even if the start was rather rough. I still owe you a proper outing. I looked at her in the eyes and smiled. I suppose you do. She pursed her lips. I will wait until you resolve this mess. She tiptoed over to me, gently placing her lips to my cheek, being careful not to wake the little fox. I enjoy this side of you, Wilhelm. Playing dad. I chuckled. A small smile rose on her face. The side of you that is willing to lend aid to others, this honorable aspect of yours. I know you appear aloof most of the time, but I enjoy watching you care about others, to be honorable like this. She pushed a few strands of hair behind her ear. Izanami showed me how you lent aid when Kyoto was attacked. Oh, introducing Artoria to the internet, I'm sure that can only end well. I only helped because it was right there. I dismissed. Is there an issue with only helping those you can see that are in trouble? She looked at me. No one is expected to travel the world, to right every wrong in existence, but to see evil committed in front of your eyes and choose to act, that is what makes someone honorable. You know, when you say something like that to me, it just makes it harder for me to let you go. I sighed, feeling a warmness in my heart at her words. It is unfortunate, but other matters require your attention. Yeah, I need to get this little girl home. I gave a wry smile, waving my hand. A new portal formed, linking back to Zelrich's workshop. She gave one last goodbye before turning and walking through the portal, going home. Oh. Her words echoed out right as she was disappearing. I very much would like to hear about how my sword is destroyed from you at a later date. Oof. The venom in her voice was palpable. That is not going to be a fun conversation to have. Even still, why does it always feel so bitter when I have to separate? I made a small resolve to finally finish my home so I could link up everywhere and not have to deal with this so much. Well, regardless, I readjusted my hold on the little fox. Time to get you back home to mommy. I whispered, opening a new portal to the surface. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.